There's a three-part component to the WebAssign that we used in the lab. One was the pre-lab, the second was the data analysis, which was in the lab, and then the post-lab. By doing the pre-lab ahead of time, what the students were forced to do was to read the manual, know exactly how the procedure was to be done. So they were definitely much better prepared than just coming into the lab with a hard copy of a lab manual that was typically used in NC State before we used WebAssign. The in-lab was very useful because it gave instantaneous feedback to the students. They could tell when some of their data was incorrect, when their calculations were not done correctly, or even when they looked at a graph, how it worked. The post-lab was sort of a confirmation of the material they had learned in the lab, so they would go back to their homes or their dormitories and work on the post-lab before the next lab, and it sort of reinforced what they had learned in the in-lab.
The randomization of numbers in the questions helps especially for our quantitative chemistry labs. It gives students their own set of numbers within a range that they can use to calculate different properties related to their chemical reactions. It makes sure that each student has an individual assignment, but yet is similar to other students' assignments, so they can assist one another, but yet still have their own set of data. This also helps when they collect their own data and put the numerics into WebAssign, because WebAssign has the ability to take the data that they've collected and use it on further calculations to get colligative molarity or temperature differences or heat outputs for reactions.
When a student enters data into WebAssign, it gives them instant feedback as to whether their values are low or high or about the correct range. We also have this what we call dependency boxes, where students cannot input calculations that are dependent on actual data. So they have to take the data, they have to input the data before they can enter answers into boxes that have dependency on previous entries.
The instructor can spend more time teaching the students and interacting with them in the lab instead of spending their time alone grading assignments. Instructors can work with a greater number of students and get things checked, get calculations checked and perceptions checked as the students perform the lab procedure.
We again had a very large multi-section course. We had many teaching assistants. Some of them were first-year students. In fact, a lot of them were first-year students, and they quite often lacked the experience in dealing with different sections, in grading, in preparing, etc. With WebAssign, the grading part was eliminated. The personal grading part was eliminated. So the TAs did not have to figure out what the meaning of a rubric was and how to grade, so they were very consistent across the sections, and we had less complaints from students. It also helped the TAs to prepare for the lab before they came to the lab, so that in a better way than just doing the lab and then coming in. Quite often in the past, TAs would lecture for 15 to 20 minutes, which is very unnecessary. So with WebAssign, that part of the lab is eliminated. The TAs don't have to lecture, they don't have to take away time, very valuable time from data collection.
They can enter their data as they go along, make calculations based on their own data that they collected, and check that their calculations are correct. And we also have questions that ask about theory and their knowledge of their chemical observations. So we have computers in the lab. Our students can fill out their WebAssign in lab as they move along and check their perceptions as they move along. It offers real-time interaction with them to make sure that they're understanding their lab.
If someone is planning on using it for the first time with their courses, I could perhaps say some of the best practices that I found were that assigning the pre-lab, making it available to the students perhaps a week before the actual lab, so they have a whole week to get that done, but definitely have it due like about an hour before the lab is to be, before the lab starts. The second thing is to not have the data analysis part of it available to the students until they have finished collecting the data, so that then they can concentrate on using WebAssign to input their data, do the calculation, etc. And the post-lab should become available about an hour after the lab ends, so they are not interfering with, or they don't get distracted by trying to finish the post-lab.